Hot Button.
I was gonna say, I'm playing Outer Wilds.
Oh,
Still
yeah.
trying to play that game.
Not to be confused with the Outer Worlds.
Not to be confused with the Outer Worlds. And like that game is all structured around like giving you no information. They're like just explore.
Yeah.
It's like as an adult, like I don't have time anymore. Just tell me where to go, and I'll go there and I'll do it.
and I'll shoot at it.
Melody
Yeah.
was literally yelling at me the other night because I'm going through Game Pass and I'm
Yeah.
going open world. I don't have time.
Yeah.
This game, I don't have time. And then
Yeah.
like 10 games in, she's like, "Let me guess." And I was like, "I don't have time to play this."
I've been shouting this shit about games now for years.
They're just like you go on there like this is the greatest game ever made, but like if you die, it takes you 20 minutes to get back to where you were.
Yeah.
But then you also have like this Majora's Mask like timer of about 22 minutes.
Yeah.
So you got like 2 minutes to explore once you get
So,
back.
you know
and I'm
what's-
like, no.
You know what's interesting? Go back and read reviews of BioShock 1. That game was, critically acclaimed, of course, doesn't really show, but one of the biggest criticisms against it was that the way that it's designed is that there was a lot of pushback that the game over states, like dying in that game felt meaningless because of the tanks. So like before auto
The
saves,
Vita chambers.
The Vita chambers, yeah. So like before
Back to
auto
tanks.
before like auto saving was like as prominent as it is now, like you would just appear in a tank and the game didn't lose anything because of it, but there are a lot of people that still were like thought that was made the game too easy. And now it's funny because like
Grow up.
but now that's how all games that's how games were for that generation, and now
Yeah.
we've gone back to losing progress again.
Well, yeah,
Like-
that's funny because I don't want to get like too far off like right in the beginning, but
Yeah.
like my friend has a gaming website. I don't want to like promo him because I don't know if he's still doing it or anything like that. But I wrote a review for FTL when it came out for them,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
that game was like such a weird thing because I guess that's kind of like. I don't know. Maybe roguelikes were getting pretty popular around that time or before that time or something.
It was
Like,
right around that time. It was one of the big ones.
Yeah.
yeah, but like I had
Rogue
never
Legacy.
personally played a roguelike, and it was a weirdly refreshing thing. And I mentioned that in the review about how when you see game over and you have to start from the beginning, I was like, that's strange.
Yeah.
Like, that's such like a weird thing I never experienced, or I haven't experienced in a while, I should say.
When I played the remaster of Dead Rising 1, I totally forgot that game ran off manual saves in the same way an old Resident Evil does. So I played it for hours just like
oh yeah,
thinking that the game kept
about
auto-saving, and then I died and then realized like, oh, that...
I
It
did
didn't
that with
save,
something
like,
recently.
that's
It's
6
No
hours
Man's
of, like,
Sky
stuff.
like that, or something like that recently, where there was like
Save stations?
physical saves, or no, like you had to manually save the
Oh,
game.
you had to pause the game and save manually?
Yeah.
That's kind of a...
Yeah, I don't know what game it was, but well, yeah, but the open worlds. I don't have the time. That's why I was enjoying Dark Souls. I was like, it's like the perfect in between of like open world and linear. Like,
Yeah,
if
you
you really
backtrack,
grind down that
but-
game, it's on rails.
Yeah.
It's like. It's on rails in a clever way.
What was
Like,
that one
what
Dark
makes
Souls
that
style game that was like level-based?
level based?
Was that Neo? One of them was... It was like literally like short levels, but it was... When put together, the whole thing was... Like
Oh,
I think that was Neo
Yeah.
or Nio.
But yeah, I mean, yeah. No, I
Yeah.
never played it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't either other than...
Obviously, what makes that
I did.
game good is its layers, like
Yeah.
layering.
I think every game opener should be more like Doom 2016.
Yes.
That I know you haven't played it yet, but that
I did
Did you?
start it, so yeah, immediately started
Okay,
crushing
yeah.
that guy's head on the table. Yeah.
that's so good. Hey guys, this is Hot Button. I'm Randall Beatrice, your murder simulator expert. Here as always with Austin Blakesley
Yo.
and Chris Anantuano.
Hey, what up?
How you guys feeling?
I'm all right.
I'm
Yeah.
doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I cleaned the house today.
it's nice.
Yeah, until you guys showed up. I was just kidding.
Austin, what's going on your end?
Playing Outer Wilds. It's hot out.
So you thought you'd explore space to cool
Yeah.
off?
Got sucked into a couple black holes. Got real angry about it.
Is this metaphorically or?
Both metaphorically and
literally.
literally.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, today we're going to talk about the little AO-rated game that could or couldn't, according to most people, Hatred, an isometric shoot 'em up that was released on the PC in 2015, developed and published by indie Polish team Destructive Creations. In the game, the player would assume the role. Yeah, right.
Sounds like a fucking teenager's poem.
Their logo is like a mushroom cloud. Like it's very
Thumbs up.
In the game, the player would assume the role of an unnamed mass-killing psychopath set out to embark on a genocide crusade. Despite the title itself receiving some universally poor reviews, it would surprisingly and unsurprisingly leave quite the footprint to affect future video games to come. Not from its gameplay, but from its crass marketing, controversial release, questionable development team, and of course that sweet, juicy adults-only label from our fine friends at the ESRB.
Ayo.
A tag that many people probably don't even know exists. So who's ready to discuss...
Which Peggy number is that?
I don't know. Peggy, the max is 18, but that's the equivalent of an M. I don't know if they have one that goes
No,
beyond
because
that.
listen to the Hot Button episode on the formation of the ESRB if you want to know this. But
Yeah.
they have
I'll
a Peggy.
pass.
They have a Peggy 17 and a Peggy 18, I think.
Do they? But the 18 is able to still be distributed in the same way an M would.
It's weird because
Can.
like Peggy
I thought they have a 16.
16. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
I
right.
just like the trailers where it goes, Peggy 13.
Yeah,
or
Peggy
whatever.
18.
16 is like when it's got like violence but no sex or something like that. I forget.
You think Europeans would be more...
It might be the other way around.
Yeah. But who's ready to discuss the war on political correctness and games as an art form?
Ugh, I love a nuanced conversation.
Also, heads up, there is a lot of Polish names,
All right.
and they are impossible to read. I'm sorry. I'm going to do my best.
Well, they're not impossible to read if you're Polish.
Yeah.
Well...
They're
Yeah.
just impossible
Then
for you to
You're
read.
really making me sound like an ugly American right now. I showed the CEO's name to you, and that took some...
I got it.
there goes our Polish audience.
You gave up on the first name and just went for the
No,
second.
I said the first name was
Did
like
you?
Piotr. What was it?
Well, when he comes up in the story, I'm going to have you read it.
Okay.
Then you knock.
But I apologize ahead of time for that. I am going to do my best. So as I mentioned before, our studio for the day will be Destructive Creations, founded in... I'm already good. Austin, that's in...
Gluice? Is that what you're talking? Gluice, Poland?
Yeah.
Gliwice.
So
Gliwice?
Founded in I think it's Gliwice. I'm gonna
Gliwice?
refer to that from now. Founded in Gliwice, Poland in July of 2014, which I had to find on their Facebook page as the official website is majorly lacking in information and full of broken links. It's not well maintained, and I'm not just saying that because
I wonder why.
and I'm not just saying that because much of it is still not in English.
Yeah.
With most of the staff coming from previous Polish game company, The Farm 51, known for their work on the Painkiller series, which I've played a couple of those.
Yeah.
Years later, they also went on to make a flawed, although intriguing, mystery thriller FPS that I actually rather enjoyed called Get Even.
Yes.
Yeah, that was The Farm 51. But yeah, the newly formed group, Destructive Creations, would gain very little attention until they formally revealed their first project, which, our story for today. So, Austin, I kind of know your experience with Hatred a little bit. Chris, were you at all conscious of when this
I've never
trailer...
even heard of this game.
No?
No.
Okay, so this is going to be really
I
interesting.
know
Alright.
nothing about
Let
this.
me read you the Wikipedia. Hatred is a human emotion. Oh, wrong page. No. Randy already kind of read it.
I did. Yeah.
Isometric shoot 'em up. No, you can explain it. I thought that was a funny joke. It's just gone on far too long.
No, I don't know anything about it.
No?
No,
All right,
I really
well,
don't.
this will be a lesson for you. Yeah,
so it'll
yeah.
be news for me.
Okay, all right. I still think you're going to have some opinions on this. So
Oh, I'm sure.
yeah,
I have
it'll be
opinions
fun.
on everything. That's what being a complainer is all about.
So, how do you feel about the prequels? You have opinion on those?
Not a big fan of I can't think The Hobbit.
Not the same prequels, but that works. So on October 26, 2014, Hatred was announced along with a trailer posted to their YouTube channel. Right off the bat, it was unapologetically clear exactly what kind of game it was.
Famous alt-right platform, YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah.
It depicts a long-haired trenchcoat-wearing edgelord character, only known later as the antagonist, loading up weapons while
Whoa. You play as the antagonist? That's
Yeah.
deep, dude.
Yeah. Loading up weapons while spouting off manifestos about how full of hate he was at the world and how human beings are just worms and that no life is worth saving, blah, blah, blah. put as many people in the grave as I can. It's
Okay.
my time to kill and my time to die. It's pretty.
Agreed so
It's
far.
pretty
Continue.
lame. Like you would roll your eyes at this trailer for
I'm
sure.
on board.
Yeah.
Humans are worms, and no life is worth saving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're on,
cool.
it's
Cool.
okay.
I discovered nihilism when I was 15 too. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Being a real nihilist is about growing past that and realizing if nothing really matters, then why even be angry, you fucking sissy?
The character kind of looks like a combination of Danzig and Reaper from Overwatch. So you just put those together.
That sounds awesome. That's,
You guys
that's
familiar with
giving
the,
this guy way too much credit.
Yeah,
Are you guys
That's
familiar
right.
with the Reaper names Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've submitted a couple. They're amazing. Like my favorite is Bloody Darkness. I found a guy that was his name. Like
Oh,
whenever you
boy.
see a Reaper player with a dark name, he just
So then he says his genocide begins now and proceeds to, following a speech to exit his house before indiscriminately murdering everyone in front of him in this suburban neighborhood, which did become the final game's opening sequence. There are quick cuts to some close-ups of the in-game executions where victims are seen begging for their lives, along with showing off some other environments like that you shoot up, like a supermarket and a police station. The game also appears to be fully in black and white, other than the bright red blood, of course, similar to, say, like a Sin City or a Mad World, if I wanted to use another
Schindler's
video
List.
game comparison. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. What are the graphics? I know you said isometric. Is it like Fallout isometric?
No,
is it
it's
like Hyper Light
3D,
Drifter? Or is it like nice looking or
Yeah.
It's 3D. It's like Ruiner.
okay?
Yeah, I'd
All
say
right, all right,
yeah.
all right, all
It's
right.
kind of in line with
From
something
like from
that.
like the point of view that you're controlling and the way it controls and sort of
sort
how
of
it's
structurally,
animated.
yeah. Actually,
kinda like
yeah, how
Ruiner.
it's
We're
animated.
talking about the animation.
How the controls correspond to the animations
Like
that he's
Ruiner,
doing.
if it was made by angsty Polish people who are bad at making video games.
Yeah.
Hey, CD Projekt Red has a new title coming out. Let's not knock them too hard.
It also seemed to feature pretty open levels with tons of destructibility and physics as well. But yeah, the word of this game was out, and it was simultaneously grim and lame. No rating or platforms were shown here either, but it generated some response, which
In
I
the
will-
same way 9/11 did. Go on.
Which is, it's interesting that this did kind of do that, only because there's so much shooting and killing in games these days. Like, what made this reveal trailer so popular to discuss? Was it the 90s shock rock look of it? Was it that it lacked the satirical tone of other do whatever you want to innocent people games out there, like, say, a Postal or GTA or Saints Row?
Yeah.
Or was it that needless shootings committed by gun-toting spree killers were sadly dominating news cycles, and this seemed like nothing but an interactive version of that to bask in? Call of Duty's No Russian mission that we did an episode on suddenly begins to feel quaint,
Yeah, I
compared
think
to...
it's context.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to
It
get
is.
into it yet.
Yeah.
Do we want to yet, or should we
Compared
wait?
to a title that is, like, deliberately
Let's get into it.
designed to shamelessly celebrate.
That's the
Like,
thing. Like the,
There's
To
the-
celebrate
the,
it,
the,
yeah.
Context and circumstances, everything. Like,
the titles that you mentioned, like Call of Duty, is either, depending on which title in the series you're talking
Yeah.
about, it's either a celebration or a critique
Yeah,
of
who is it
sort
that
of
somebody
like the
tweeted they
military.
can't figure out
Also-
if Call of Duty is trying to say if
Call
war
of-
is bad or badass? Like,
Yeah.
they can't
yeah.
tell.
Also, Call of Duty is an exaggeration. Call of Duty is an
Oh, yeah.
action movie.
Yeah, they're
you
it's
know
kind
what
of
I
like an
mean?
action blockbuster.
And Postal
film, for
and
sure.
Postal and things like GTA are like taking themselves as least seriously as they possibly can.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're
Well,
as,
no,
as,
yeah,
as much
what-
as I don't like Postal, it is a joke game.
There are examples across the board. It's hard to. Video games are going to get a little more scrutiny because of their place in the list of whether or not they're art or not.
Yeah.
But think about movies. There are violent movies that are violent and disgusting and not entertaining. And there are movies that use violence to portray a point and actually come across. And there's the differences in the context and the way it's brought about. Like, it's unfortunate, but some people are better at making points than other people.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's like it's a thing where if you're an adult of any mental capacity, you either get to the point where you realize that things like manifestos and stuff are stupid because nothing matters.
Yeah.
You get to, like Chris said, that point of nihilism, or like you really believe that, and then I don't know, you end up going to jail or going to a mental hospital or worse. But like,
Yeah.
I think it was the attitude of that nobody's ever tried to tackle this subject that seriously. They never.
Yeah.
They call you the antagonist,
But the vibe
it
is
seems,
like throwing the devil horns up or something.
it
like
seemed
it's a
like
little...
they thought they were being cool.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the
yeah,
problem.
We'll get into that. As opposed to games that have tackled violence in a serious way, but
This is
there's a level of
hatred. The best way I can describe it, because I played it.
There's
'cause
more
this
respect there.
asshole made me. He
We'll
didn't,
get into
he didn't
that.
make me, but
I didn't.
The best way I can describe it is
I
like
helped you, though.
if CSI had an episode. Well, CSI did have an episode about video games, but like
Oh,
if,
God,
if,
yeah,
if,
they did.
If a show like that, like a procedural cop drama show,
Yeah.
had an episode about violent video games and their effects on people, like, and they had to make a fake game,
This certainly...
this would be
like,
it.
we've used that example before, but this is the number one with a bullet fucking...
like
yeah.
when people are like Doom is causing our kids to become like monsters, and you
Yeah.
look at Doom and it's like you're this weird space marine who just
Fighting,
goes like
yeah.
"Arr," and has like a weird face, and you're fighting pink demons.
Yeah.
But then this is the game that angry parents think a violent video game is. This
Yeah.
is what it is.
And they were going for it.
Yes.
They wanted that.
Yes.
They wanted that response because this worked. Like the video hit hard in the games press. Many outlets were quick to condemn its portrayal of empty violence, of course, like we were saying. Not to mention the developer statement released with the trailer describing the game as a reaction to the trend of political correctness in video games.
that was probably the other half.
And
then.
yeah, and they sought to make something that eschewed politeness, colorfulness, and games as art. That was their
Well,
kind
they
of
got one of
philosophy.
those. I'll tell you, hatred is not art.
No, well,
It's
not
art.
co-
In,
it's not
it's art
colorful.
in as much as it required some skill to make, and they
Right.
had to draw actual art. But
I forget. It's similar to kind of our standpoint on Super Columbine Massacre.
even Super Columbine Massacre
Was
had
going
a lot
for-
more to say.
Yeah,
I
that
think.
is true. The entire point of this game is that
That's
it
tough.
has nothing
Yeah.
to say.
This game has absolutely nothing to say except like, hey, teenagers. You know how your mom told you you're not allowed to go out after 8 p.m.? Doesn't that make you want to shoot up your suburban neighborhood?
Yeah.
Buy this game
Just
and you
play
can do that.
GTA then.
It's a better game.
Okay.
The statement also went on to say that they sought to create a title that recalled the industry's history as a quote-unquote rebellious medium and surface-level entertainment with no insertion of any, quote, fake philosophy.
You know, Pong, the origins of rebellion.
They wanted to take it back then. They wanted to make video games great again.
Hey, man, that asteroid ship was rebelling against them asteroids, I'll tell you
Those
what.
fucking long-haired hippies who made those old games were so not the rebels
And
of
as,
any age.
and as terrible as a defense as this was, the topic still holds relevancy today in 2019 when you think about Ubisoft's commentary on the subject matter presented in many of their franchises like Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, and fucking Tom Clancy like games. Like, yeah, certainly no politics found anywhere in the world of Tom Clancy. You know, like
Who was the one?
you keep staying neutral.
This past week, we were
Oh yeah,
talking.
it just happened.
We were
Right.
talking. What company was that?
Shit.
Somebody else. Was it Outer Worlds? It was Outer Worlds.
It was Outer
It was the
Worlds.
Outer Worlds.
Yeah.
They came out and they're like, our game is not political. Anyway, here's our PR statement. And it was like, in a world where mega corporations have taken over and the rich lead. And I was like, that's not a political statement.
No, because people still don't think capitalism is politics.
Yeah. If you want to,
People still think capitalism isn't a political system.
if you want to find example of like showing whether or not video games are politicized, look up that article of whether or not it's a quote from Metal Gear Solid or a line from who's that politician, that woman, you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, God, no.
It's
I know what you're talking about,
yeah.
Phil.
In case you need further proof that
Hold on,
games have long approached
I
the
can Google
topic
it.
of politics.
Keep going.
But I digress. Polygon's Colin Campbell wrote that the site staff responded to the game's first bits of footage with genuine revulsion. Same with Kotaku, which is exactly what many people wanted, for them to be upset. Like it's easy to predict this stuff sometimes. And but we'll get to all that in a second. But well, going on further to label the newly announced game as being grisly, extremely violent, and the last one I actually totally agree with, very tacky.
Marianne Williamson.
That's who it is. Yeah. Yeah. She's kind of a nutcase.
Yes.
As those quotes seem to.
Take the quiz. You guys want to take the quiz?
Stop right now.
Yeah, we'll do that later.
All right, I'll keep the page up.
And his fellow coworker Ben Kuchera mostly stayed in that last category too, writing that the trailer was a rhetorical failure and that it attempted to really shock viewers, but ultimately just reflected the 1990s shock culture aesthetic.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me a bit about how we used to look at figures like Marilyn Manson. Like, you know, yeah, like it's. I mean, but if you looked up videos of that now, you would just be like, man, like.
This is funny. Like, if you haven't listened to our two-parter on Super Columbine Massacre and you're listening to this episode, go
Yeah.
back, because this is
And the ESRB
what
one,
happens
maybe
when
as well.
people don't understand what that game was trying to say.
Yeah,
I think.
which was part of his sort of
Yeah.
message in there.
Yeah. Like, we talked about how the creator of Super Columbine Massacre was like, I created that game when I was younger. I'm a lot older now, and, like, I don't have those same views. I've been through a lot, blah, blah, blah. Like, hatred is what happens when people
Yeah.
don't go through that stuff.
I went
think.
so back and forth morally that whole
I know.
episode.
Yeah, I know.
I
That
did-
episode is fascinating because we just keep being like, well.
I did too, but, like,
yeah.
This is just so easy
Yeah.
morally, because these people are just like, they think they're cool, or they're just really bad at making a statement. And either way,
Don't worry, I'm going to get to their
don't
response
do
in a
it.
second.
Yeah.
So PC Magazine's David Murphy wrote to get ready for the backlash about the ultra-violent shooter, ... if this game is ever released. He then compared it to other games such as Manhunt and Mortal Kombat that were known for their controversial amount of violence and felt that hatred will probably generate just as much backlash as they did. I guess not enough for you to hear
Except
about
Manhunt wasn't about strangling your neighbors with plastic
it was
bags.
prisoners in a jail. Yeah. Shortly after this, review site goodgamers.us. Is that US?
Yeah. That's the domain for websites in the United States.
Makes sense.
I thought that was .com.
Yeah.
So goodgamers.us managed to interview Destructive Creations PR manager. Austin, read this for me. It turns out it wasn't the CEO, it was the PR manager.
PR manager, okay. Presmislaw Sezapeniak.
That was, yeah, that's... I'm going to assume that, yeah, I think
That's close
I
enough.
think that seems close enough. Yeah, the CEO comes up later, which I can't pronounce that one also. But he responded to the outrage by saying that, quote, there is a huge difference between violence in real life and the one shown in video games. Which, obviously...
Nope, same thing.
Yeah.
Those were people working games writing that he was, like, answering. Like, nobody was saying that, you know? Like, that's an older argument. Because I don't think that's what they were complaining about with that trailer.
No, I think that they thought that that's what people were going to argue.
They did, yeah, because
You
they
know
were
what I mean?
setting,
They're like,
they were
"We
serving
think
the
that
ball.
People are going to be like, yeah, video games. No, they're not violence like
Yeah.
real life. It's like, no, yeah, we know that. We already had that argument in the 80s.
It's the
We're
problem
just
is
talking
that-
about this nuance
this example,
now.
like, yeah, there's no nuance. Like, this just seems trite. Most reports were honestly regarding that blatant troll-like shocking for the sake of shocking, like, message around it.
Which is what these people are nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was a title designed to do nothing but rile like everyone up. You know, don't let your grandma see this mentality. Like many of these, like these outlets, like they still defended the game's
let's rile
right.
everybody up, and let's even elect an official based on the joke.
They still defended the game's right to freedom of
too
expression, with Polygon even saying that they couldn't find any website out there like requesting a ban or censorship of the actual thing. Like, you know, like nobody was like banging that drum.
All right, are we
anymore.
allowed to get into the alt-right speech yet?
No.
No?
No,
Damn
it's
it.
going to come
Okay.
up in a little bit.
I got some things to say
I
already.
like the idea they're like looking for people to hate them, and they're like, no, we just don't care. It sucks.
But people were talking about it. I've just been talking about like the press outlets, like people, like forum chatters alike too, because it's a bunch of people who are not actively following the industry in the same way we are. Like to the outside looking in, they probably thought that this really was generating conversations because of the violence of like in the content. Like
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But it's a little far behind. Still, like, kind of.
That's true. Regardless, followers or future potential players were way into the pot stirring, like I said, like going so far as to send the company's CEO, Austin, take this from me.
Jaroslaw Zelensky? Jaroslaw Zelensky.
Jaroslaw Zelensky. Yeah. Going far as to send him fan mail. While the trailer was initially going to be provocative, I did not anticipate the large reaction, he said. But he did agree that the trailer's, quote, so-called shock tactic did its job very well. Like, he came out and said that. And that the industry reaction to the trailer reflected the political correctness or the way we are told and taught to think, he continued. It's like, this guy feels pretty vindicated at all of the...
I can't tell
All
whether
right,
it's
now.
a class. Okay, go ahead.
No, you can go. Go ahead.
I was saying, I can't tell whether it's like a classic scenario of like, I did something disruptive, and then when you call me out for my disruption, I go, huh, see?
Yeah.
Or if it's
You're all
like,
puppets.
or if it's like,
Putty in the palm of my
Poland
hand.
is just fucked up and like in a different cultural state than we are, and maybe the conversation about violence hasn't reached in video games. Hasn't reached
It's
the
interesting.
same-
Like, culturally,
same
are there
level.
people who are sensitive to breaching different topics? You know, like, and
I just there's this thing the way that people weaponize controversy
yeah,
is like
and this is absolutely premeditated.
yes
Yeah.
because like the way you'll do it is you'll see it a lot with in the PC culture with comedians, people like Ricky Gervais and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
Who are
that's a
like
good example.
you come out and like he'll come out with a special and he'll make a joke that he shouldn't be making.
Yeah. What did he say at the Golden Globes? He thought, "I'd like to thank God for making me an atheist" or something.
Yeah. The one where he's like, I identify as a chimp now.
Here's the
Don't
difference
call me a
between
man.
Ricky Gervais is a dumb cunt and he's not funny.
So
That's the
yes.
difference.
Whoa.
So
Sorry.
you're getting at what I'm saying, which is that a bunch of people see this special and then they post on their social medias and they write articles and they say like, can you believe Ricky Gervais says this? And then his PC police,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
whatever the opposite, the anti-PC people, they come out and they're
All the
like,
defenders,
how
probably.
dare you try to censor us? First Amendment, free speech, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then like somebody eventually will come out and be like, nobody is telling him not to say that.
Yeah, free speech doesn't mean you're free of being criticized.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
And
not
it also
freedom
doesn't-
of consequence.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, it's-
Nobody is sitting here saying that Ricky Gervais should be arrested for saying what he said.
Yeah.
Nobody is
They're
saying
just
that he
disagreeing
should
with
be kicked
it.
out of the industry for saying what they
Yeah.
said. They're just like, hey, dude, I think your jokes are unfunny and I think they're bad.
And he should be
And I
criticized
think-
for
Yes.
it because
I-
that
Yeah.
is free speech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
like, hey,
you're-
what you
I
said
think
is
you're
fucked
a
up.
hack. I think you should write comedy that's not pushing buttons because that's the easiest comedy to write. That's what they're
Yes.
saying.
Yeah.
And like the thing with the hatred thing is like people come out and they're like, hey, this is a little too violent. And everybody's like,
like premise.
no,
ones,
you
yeah.
PC police, you should shut the fuck up. I think this is dope. And it's like, nobody out there was saying that. I mean, well, we'll get there. But like in the beginning, nobody out there was saying that, like, how dare they put this game on Steam? Like, they
Yeah.
should be arrested and this should be banned. They were just like, this is a little much.
It's the air around this is way different than when we talked about the E ESRB episode. Like, people are very liberal with the use of the word censorship. Like, and it's like at no point is the government involved in the story.
No.
Like, yeah, like
Everybody's
not to disappoint.
It is not censorship and it is not a violation of free speech if a company tells you you can't say something on their show or post something on their website. If Facebook bans you for saying things, that's not a violation of free speech. That is a violation of the terms of service of that
Yeah,
website
or
that you sign up
policies,
for
yeah.
when you sign up for an account. There's no...
It's a very complex of way of being like, all right, let's say if I went through a lot of effort to put a big piece of paper in the center of the table and then Randall wrote something fucked up on it and I just like tear it away like, no, you can't write on this anymore. It's like the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it has nothing to do with free speech. It's just like, this is mine, my effort, my platform.
Yeah.
You
The
don't get to
People
say
don't
that.
realize that the government only goes so far as to arrest you, essentially.
right.
Or I guess fine you maybe, but like that's all they can do. So if you go on Twitter and you say hate speech and Twitter bans you,
yeah.
that is not a violation of your free speech rights because that is not the US government doing that.
And
That is Twitter.
And there are other countries that have very specific laws around ethics and
Yeah.
and can absolutely
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's why we so openly tote that whole free speech thing because there's a lot of places where that's not a thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's just like, that's that's just a big
Yeah.
talking point that we should just hammer into people's heads.
There's indecency.
In general. It's just that, like, doesn't mean you get to say whatever you want consequence free.
Yeah.
I can criticize you and say whatever the fuck I want to you because it's, by your own standards, just as equally free as you say it is.
Yes.
But not only that, it's just like, it has nothing to do with the actual fucking terms. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
Free speech is free speech, and it goes both ways. So I'm allowed to criticize you if I think what you're saying is fucked up, and you can't cry and say that I'm violating your free speech rights or that I'm censoring you, because you are just as free to come back at me. The problem is you don't have a comeback, so you're defaulting to me telling you how to behave.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, man, that's criticism. That's how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're not prepared for it.
Yes.
He also added in the interview that he did not think the trailer crossed any moral boundary and that those who disagreed could choose not to play it. Which, fair enough, really. I mean...
Accurate.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like, at this point in the story, it's like, just let them make their dumb thing.
I agree with that, too. If fucking people want to play this game,
Yeah.
go right ahead. No skin off my
for
back.
It really only had the platform... due to a widely perceived perception of false rage based on nothing but speculation from prior gaming controversies like Hot Coffee and No Russian. You know,
Yes.
like those kind of set the stage for a controversy like that to come up again, and it didn't really this time. Or this debate was the debate around this game was not in that space. But I mean, I'm sure many parents and maybe even politicians were still upset by this, but honestly, like, those days of moral panic kind of fell long over to me after that fight getting lost so many times. Like, by 2014 and on, wider news stories in the industry tended to focus on different subjects such as online harassment and loot box gambling and labor practices. Like, you know, the relentlessly gory games were a dime a dozen at this point. Like, maybe not with this particular setting, but with the views racking up and folks tweeting, the newly formed small team of devs were thrilled. And why wouldn't they be? People wanted to play their game, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
So, like, as far as, like, the actual development goes, from what I could find, like, a few months go by, at least since this first trailer, and, like, everything continues pretty uninterrupted. I saw some information about who wrote the dialogue, which, great job, buddy, because in that game it's... as well as the inclusion of a Norwegian death metal band. I think they were called Blood Red Throne, and Polish metal bands Internal War and Ibeript to accompany the dark ambient soundtrack, which, you know, whatever, who cares? I think the lead singer of that second band is actually the one who voices the player character in the game, except he listed himself in the credits... under the pseudonym Clint Westwood, claiming he was trying to stay anonymous. So, first person to sort of distance themselves from this. And that's going to become a regular sort of thing going forward here.
Really?
Yeah.
Even them?
Well, not so much the team. They're embracing it. It's more
No,
of
I meant
like...
even them as like the musicians. Like,
yeah, considering it's like... Polish metal bands are super into the pageantry of being all dark and fucked
Black
up.
metal's got a bit of a
A stigma around...
controversial.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all whatever. On December 15th of that year, this is still 2014, the game appears on Steam through its Greenlight program, which at the time, that and GOG or GOG, a service that later rejected the proposal of hosting Hatred, seemed to be the only platforms the team was targeting due to their small size and content of the product. Because the first trailer didn't...
GOG is also Polish.
Really?
It's CD Projekt Red.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting. I bet that news followed some of the stuff that we'll get exposed to later. Because I don't think the first reveal of this did not have, like, hey, it's on Steam. It wasn't until December 15th that it suddenly went up on Greenlight. And Greenlight is essentially like a...
Was.
You're right. Greenlight is no
isn't a
longer...
thing anymore.
That's a whole nother fucking episode.
Yeah, we should do that.
We've covered quite a few Steam features already that got added and removed. But yeah, anyway, back to Steam. The official page for it was live, and reading on the subject of slaughtering innocent civilians and law enforcement for no disconcertable reason other than to rack up a body count and die spectacularly while doing it. Get ready for this edgelord shit, guys. I'm just going to read the store page. This is when this was up. You will go out for a hunt. You will clear the American soil off humans with cold blood. You will shoot, you will hurt, you will kill, you will die. There are no rules, no compassion, no mercy, no point of going back. You are the Lord of life and death now, and you have the full control over the lives of worthless human scum. Also, I didn't fuck that up. That typo was in, like, all those typos were in there. I know English is not their first language, but that was all verbatim. But I still have no idea how anyone above the age of 14 thought that this description was cool. Like, people on, like, on Gameform sites, way into it. Like,
That's shocking.
yeah. So game is up. Only hours later, on the same day, it disappears off the store. Valve, along with this quick action, also sent a personal email from a representative there stating that the company had cited concerns that the title would not fit in with their publishing standards. Destructive Creations then responded with their statement while also sharing an excerpt of the message they received from Valve, which directly read, "We wanted you guys to know that based on what we see on Greenlight, we will not publish Hatred on Steam. As such, we'll be taking it down." Pretty to the point answer, and kind of out of the ordinary for their service to police something like that, considering the things that are on their store. But their answer to the removal was, quote, "Even though games like Manhunt and Postal are still available on Steam, we will of course fully respect Valve's decision, as they have the right to do so. In the same time, we want to assure you that this won't in any way impact the game's development, game's vision, or gameplay features we're aiming for." Which, product quality aside, totally with them here. Like, make your shooter. There are other venues, right?
I know this story vaguely. This is handled a lot better than I thought it was at the time.
Yeah.
Like,
so far.
I mean, so far, yeah. We'll get there, but like, for as edgelord as their game is, they're like, yeah, they're a company, and we respect their decision because it's their platform. You're like, whoa, guy. That's very poignant for somebody who's making a game about a dude in a trench coat murdering innocent civilians.
Yeah. Though eager followers of the game were still understandably upset, despite the fact that the company really does have every right to back away from it, and that they said it would still come out, on, like, for them to play. But I more just find it interesting that this was where Steam drew the line. Like, that store has always had some pretty gnarly games for sale on it, many by major distributors. But yeah, even for the brief time it was up, Hatred had already garnered 13,148 upvotes from the Steam community, ranking 7th on Greenlight's top 100 list. This is the best proof for us that there are diehard Hatred fans out there waiting for this game to be released, the developer said, and that we need to keep going to deliver them a game that offers exciting and challenging gameplay, which...
Both of those descriptions are inaccurate, having played the game.
Then the next morning, on the 16th, something incredible happened, depending on who you are, anyway. Hatred was returned to the service, along with an apology to the development team sent by Gabe Newell himself. The email read, "Hi, Mr. Jaroslaw," referring to the game's creative director. "Yesterday I heard we were taking Hatred down from Greenlight. Since I wasn't up to speed, I asked around internally to find out why we had done that. It turns out that it wasn't a good decision, and we'll be putting Hatred back up. My apologies to you and your team. Steam is about creating tools for content creators and customers.
I'm not going to miss out on a chance to make $13,000 here."
Good luck with your game, Gabe. So Hatred was back, everyone. The too hot for Steam train was gone. Bring on the murder porn. Except then 2 days later, on the 18th, very condensed timeline here, something very, very, very troubling came up.
Here's where it gets bad.
Rafael Pankowski? He's a sociologist and co-founder of the Never Again Association.
Who were in the news a lot lately,
yeah,
if you're paying attention.
For those unfamiliar,
this time is in history.
They are a Polish anti-racist, anti-Nazi organization, and Rafael posted his findings after analyzing the political associations of the development team. What did he discover? Well, there seemed to be some pretty clear connections to the radical right, with members of the Hatred team liking certain groups publicly on Facebook known for their spread of racist, neo-fascist, and violent views. And the proof was fairly definitive here. But of course, shortly thereafter, the CEO at Destructive Creations, as well as several of his employees, issued personal responses to those accusations, denying everything. They reaffirmed, and I'm grabbing this right from Polygon here, their right to free association and decried accusations of neo-Nazism. At the same time, they thanked an eager left-leaning press for falling right into their carefully laid public relations trap.
So, wait, what?
They were basically being like, we got you.
Yeah, we liked all these weird open
Kinda.
alt-right things because we wanted you to see what this
They
game was
like
attached
they
to.
denied it, but they also said like, "Oh, this is what liberals do." You know, like it's weird. Like it's just like
Liberals.
This is something that me and alt-rights have in common. I hate liberals. Okay? But that's what any...
I think the response there was more directed at people.
Could have gone any one of a number of ways. That's it.
I think the response there was more
Dude,
directed.
liberals might as well be fucking alt-rights in my
What's
fucking
the
book.
What's the line from Green Room where you go so far left that you're right, you go so far right that you're left, eventually it just circles back in on itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is true. But I think that last part was more meant for people in the games press that reported on this. You know what I mean? And they're just like, you guys fell for it. You know, they were basically accusing the co-founder of that group that they were slandering their studio for no reason other than to generate some sort of, I don't know, what would that motive be? Why would
I
it?
mean, to generate clicks, right? If the,
I
if the
guess.
hatred announcement trailer thing.
That's such a weirdly subtle thing to do, though. I don't feel like that's the case.
No, I think that's.
You think?
If the hatred post.
I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that group's a non-profit. I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
if,
the
oh
truth
yeah,
is-
that group
okay.
totally.
Yeah.
If the hatred,
Hey, if you want to garner to the right to gain some sort of following and profit, it worked here.
I know. I'm just saying, if the hatred article when it was announced got a lot of clicks, then it would make sense that if there was new news about
Oh,
hatred,
right,
you
right.
would write another article.
But why would this organization care about what's going on in the gaming
They
community?
wouldn't.
Yeah,
This is a stupid accusation.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
yeah. You guys want to hear the CEO's response?
I thought that was the CEO's response.
Well, I think that was just sort of a collective from the team, essentially, but this is him directly. We tried to get world's attention to our product, and as you can see, it worked perfectly. We wish to thank all of our haters and all upset press for a great marketing campaign that they've done for us.
No! Companies shouldn't be allowed to use the word haters.
I agree.
I think that should be a rule.
Also, if you're trying to use that you hate Jews for a PR stunt, I don't know if there's anything that was ever built in Poland for that purpose, or, I mean,
Wow.
Further questioning about these links between the company and the Facebook groups in question. I think one of them was called Pro-Polish Polska Liga Obrony, or
Ligma?
I don't know. It translates.
it's like Liga, it's a little close. L is
They're
there's a
known
whole
as
LMNOP and all kinds of blend together there.
they're known as the Polish Defense League. I think that's more there.
Are they liberal? That sounds racist. The Polish Defense League?
No, they are. That's the right. That's one of the alt-right groups that they were
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Named appropriately.
But they just
They
respond
did a pretty bad job defending Poland the first time. Sorry.
God.
World
But-
War II joke for you.
But they just responded again that they did not support that organization and were against totalitarian ideologies. Totalitarian. Sorry.
This is how you know we're not political here. Randall doesn't give a shit.
That's not true.
He's just reporting the facts.
It's the English language I have a problem with.
That's all right. English is built so you can say whatever you want as long as you make a point.
And that's really as far as this story branch kind of goes, unfortunately. Further digging didn't appear to bring up any more inclusive evidence, and the press sort of strangely moved on. And maybe the team just got a little more, conscious of the fact that people were going to be looking into them, so they, kind of shielded themselves up and hid that stuff better.
Maybe. Or maybe
I don't know.
whatever, it's Poland. Everyone in Russia's racist.
But also, it didn't help that this news dropped the week of Christmas. So it is very possible that the break away from work threw a wrench into the fan of the current news cycle. Yeah.
Fair.
Also, side note, apparently there are still continuously a lot of issues dealing with things like this in Poland right now, which I suppose is why the organizations like Never Again exist to actively fight it. So good on them, for sure.
Yeah, Poland's got a history with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, also Europe has a history with fascism.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember a little thing called 1910 to 1939.
What
It's
happened
all
in
a blur. Yeah.
There's something that happened in 1939 that has to do with Poland. I'm drawing a blank, though.
Oh, and none of this proved to be important anyway, really, because on the 29th of December, following this, it became the most voted game on the service and was successfully approved for launch. So,
Yeah,
Hey,
obviously.
whatever, you released it in America, man. We don't care about your racist views. We just care about money.
Yeah.
anyway, some relatively quiet weeks go by, and then Hatred pops right back into the public eye once again, ringing in the new year. And this time, now making a bigger splash than ever, too. Why? On January 16th, 2015, Hatred is officially given an adults-only 18-plus rating by the Entertainment Software Ratings Board. A tier so uncommon, so ill-fated, and so useless that retailers like Walmart, Target, Best Buy, and GameStop all refuse to carry anything with the label, and each one of our 3 major console manufacturers as well. And I think we have said this in the past a little bit when we were discussing San Andreas. Also, will outright forbid the sale of a game given it from being on their platform.
Exactly.
No
I was gonna
exceptions.
say, exactly.
Yeah.
All of those consoles have said several times in the last 30 years they
Yes.
don't put games that are AO.
It
on
is
their
since the 90s. It has been a policy enforced by Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo that publishers would have to spend their own costs to edit a title threatening it in order to meet the standard, so that, they could appear on them. But see, I really wanted to get into this part with you guys because it's all very reminiscent of the MPAA's NC-17 rating for movies and how most theater chains won't play them, nor will the majority of retailers stock them afterwards, just like with the AO. So it's just why do these ratings even exist? Nowadays, it's fairly common to release movies for stream or download unrated. Same thing with games on PC and the Steam store. Unlike the consoles, Steam doesn't require that your studio even go through the ESRB at all.
Yeah.
It's
I think so.
which small teams love as to avoid the cost of submitting for it.
That's why you get those crazy anime titty games.
And and when we brought up these early demands in our founding of the ESRB episode, the world of games was way different back then. That's typically why you see a lot of indie games come out on Steam first, and then once they make that money, they come out on consoles later because they can submit for a rating.
Yeah.
They don't have to do that
It's
initially.
fucking expensive. We talked about it before.
Yeah,
It's over 10 grand, right?
Yeah,
You know?
and that was back then. I think it's more than that now. It might be a percentage based on the scope of the game or the studio size. I'm really not sure, but I know it is a flat fee, and if you want to submit again, it costs more. Mm-hmm. And also, my 2 other points of discussion here. A, is there even a life or a venue for games of this nature featuring the label? And B, what even constitutes this title getting an AO rating over an M anyway? The themes? The Last of Us and BioShock have infinitely more fucked up implications of things going on in those stories narratively than here. And also, Hatred was rated adults only for intense violence, blood and gore, and strong language. These are the same descriptors found on an endless amount of M-rated games, found all over every market. On its face, Hatred, isn't even really that explicitly brutal. It sure doesn't hold a candle to, the modern Mortal Kombats or even a standard Call of Duty game, really.
No.
I think it's the themes.
It's the themes. It's the
And this was pre shooting a baby or whatever that new one is doing. The new Call of Duty or whatever.
What?
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll get the M rating just fine.
Yeah.
Shooting a baby?
Yeah.
Accident. There's apparently the demo mission that they showed behind closed doors at E3 to people in the industry was based around a raid mission in a residential apartment complex, and it's almost like a SWAT kind of style setup, and I think it ends with you accidentally shooting a baby, or
No, it's
playable.
It's a mother holding a baby, and she's just oh, don't shoot me, but then you have to make the decision of whether or not to shoot her, because she might just be an innocent mother holding her baby who's scared, or she might be in on it. She might grab a gun and kill you.
Apparently the game will dictate whether or not you also did it maliciously or not. I'm not really sure how that system will work. But
Can't wait to get it now.
But regardless, like, Chris, we should pull up some footage of this game at some point to show you, because it's like, I mean, it's rough, but it's not like
Okay,
if I didn't
here-
tell you that it had an AO rating, you'd probably shrug your shoulders at it, being like, yeah,
Here's
there's
my
so much of
upfront
this in the
thing.
games that we play every day.
Hey,
Like,
Hatred creators, I'm sure there's nothing wrong with your game physically. I am all about violence in video games. And
yeah, yeah,
I'm up for the philosophical debate of violence in life.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what we brought up in
Because-
previous episodes about stories in games like Hotline Miami or Spec Ops: The Line handle that really well.
Yeah. Not,
Granted, this is not going for that. I'm sorry.
not to get too into personal philosophy, but it's kind of important, I guess, if you're going to listen to what I'm talking about. As far as my, allowance of violence in real life, I'll argue this all day. And I've had talks with our sound guy about this because we're both pretty like, the system needs to be destroyed kind of people. And
Tear it all down?
Does the system
Eat
need
the
to be
rich?
destroyed by killing people or being violent? And that's an arguable thing. It's not just like I've had conversations with other
Right.
people,
And
i.e.
I'm sure you're
housemates
basing
of yours about how violence is never necessary. Period.
And I'm sure you're basing that also on actual history just throughout.
Yes. So like, with that said, this game is nothing that nobody can handle intelligently. Okay.
I agree.
I don't think playing Hatred would make you shoot up a mall or a school or anything. I think you can make a video game called Shoot Up a School, and it still wouldn't make a kid shoot up a school.
There was a later game that I apologize if I brought this up previously, because I just think it's relevant to this. But there was a game that Steam did remove from their platform called Tactical Shooter. And
Yes,
that was
I've heard of this,
or no, is it
I
Tactical
don't know
Shooter?
if we brought it up before, but
Or Active Shooter.
Active
Shooter.
Yeah, because I think it was days after Parkland, and then there
Yep.
was some
yes.
complaints.
Okay. So with that all said, obviously circumstance.
Yeah.
Maybe
that game was unrated.
in real life there was somebody who did shoot up a school because of a video game. That doesn't. One circumstance is not enough for.
They were fucked up to begin with. Yeah, there's
yeah,
no
precisely.
Yeah,
They were fucked to begin with. It's the kind of thing like, oh, it's like either me or video games. I'm leaving you. It's like I choose video games because the kind of human being that would provide you with an insane ultimatum isn't the kind of human being you should ever associate with in the first place. It's kind of like that situation. If you're willing to shoot up a school
Yeah.
because of video games, you would have done it whether
What-
video games existed or not.
What assassin was just trying to impress Jodie Foster? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I vaguely, I think I
Yeah,
know what you're
yeah,
talking about.
vaguely.
Yeah, like
Yeah, but like the point I'm trying to get at is there's nothing about this game that is inherently bad and would ever deserve it. I disagree with the AO rating 100%.
Yeah.
This game is no stronger than a T in my mind, probably, but
Yeah.
at least an M.
it's
you know?
it's
what-
weird to rate your game
However-
based around tone. They've
however-
never done that before.
However, you're right. What you're about to say. Well, maybe you're not. What you're
I
about to
see
say.
what they're going for
The
because
themes.
the themes, right? Because like you can make the argument that video games teach people violence and stuff like that, but when your video game is literally a manifesto of why
Yeah.
everybody sucks and why they need to be murdered even though they're innocent,
His speech
That
is
is-
similar to what those who have done that in real life have said.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the problem is, as much as an M rating probably won't keep it out of the hands of kids,
Yeah.
that's the ESRB, or sorry, an AO rating won't keep it out of the hands of kids. That's the ESRB doing their due diligence, because I think there are 20-year-olds out there who have.
It was the guy who shot Reagan, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah, or attempted to kill Reagan. Yeah.
I think there are 20-year-olds out there who don't have the mental capacity to understand this stuff, and I think there are 16-year-olds that do. I think dividing it by age is a weird thing to do, to get
Yeah.
into that. But like,
and it could have gotten the M, and Nintendo and Sony or Microsoft could have still said, "Fuck no, we're not putting this on
right?
our
But
platform."
the thing is, like, if you're gonna divide it by age,
I see
then
what you're saying.
an adult is much more capable of playing that game, hearing that manifesto,
And know
being
that
like,
it's
and,
like-
and like not recreating it.
Yeah.
Like when you're 16 or 17 and you're
You're
still
more
in high
impressionable.
school
Yeah.
and you relate to that kind of thought,
Yeah,
you
but-
don't want somebody like that playing
That's
that
true,
game.
but in
Is it a
but
slippery
that's the thing,
slope,
though.
though?
In most ways, though, that's not dangerous.
Or how about
The
this?
majority
like,
of people can like bask in violent horror movies and whatever, and just and be not like
the issue with me is this: is that we can make a philosophical argument for an AO rating by going, okay, by having an AO rating, it makes it so it's less accessible because maybe there are people who are going to not have the cognitive capacity to understand that this is what it is and to just ignore it, and maybe it will actually adversely affect somebody's life. But the truth is, this philosophical conversation never fucking happened at the ESRB behind closed doors ever. It was, this
destructive
game's about
creations,
shooting, get rid of it, fucking make it as inaccessible as possible, slap it with our hardest rating. And that's the issue, because the people on the other side will always argue that it was done hastily and not thought out, and they're right.
Yeah.
Because having an actual philosophical debate about it is too complex and too nuanced.
It's way past where this company, where this studio is.
Yeah,
like,
and it's neither.
And it's I go both ways on too, because it's like the game is trying to show you that violence in games can be fun, which it can be, absolutely. Like,
fucking A,
it doesn't make real world violence
play Bulletstorm
any less horrifying. Yeah, like it.
I'll kick somebody into a cactus.
It's weird. There's a weird dividing line because No Russian is actually the closest thing I can think of. Like, if you're gonna say like
compared to this,
if you're gonna say like Call of Duty should also have an adults only rating if Hatred does, it's like, well, as much as I disagree with it, that's how war works. You shoot the other people. It's part of your job as a soldier.
Yeah.
If you're trying to save the world, your job is to kill the enemies.
The justification is what you're trying to say.
The justification of hatred is just like,
but I would argue
there's
against
innocent
that too.
people and they're all worms. Go murder them.
Right. At least there was a story, whether or not it propped itself up well enough. There was a story reason as to why No Russian existed. Like,
yes.
Yeah, is it kill 1,000 to save 1 billion?
Yeah.
There was a story reason, and like in terms of games like GTA, where you can totally kill innocent people if you want to,
and I do.
You don't. Oh, I do too. You don't have to.
It's almost hard not to in that game.
Nightclubs. I swear to God, the other night we were sitting there, and I was like, huh. AK out.
They added a new.
You don't have to. It's not part of the actual
But it's interesting you
Wait,
bring
what?
up. It's interesting you bring up the Call of Duty thing again to that comparison, because it's like that is a big budget game by a big publisher, like meant for a big audience. Like, is it an internal or subconscious prejudice against smaller studios as well? Like, all those games I mentioned before had some serious money and power backing them. Like, you used to hear about that war in the film industry too, how like Hostel and Saul never had problems securing their R rating, but indie flicks like Killer Joe, even the first Scream at the time, ran into quite the problem when attempting to avoid the NC-17 due to violence. Like, it's...
I don't think so. I think it's a thing where it's like, because it's war, it's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's because...
Absolutely, because it's about money, baby.
I mean, this was
money.
a studio small enough to not be able to contest the rating or do anything about it.
That's true. It might be a little bit of both, but that's how
the setup
that's
is.
how war works. It's like, you don't want a kid listening to... This is incredibly fucked up justification, but you don't want a kid playing Hatred and being like, you know what? This guy's right. I should do this.
Yeah.
But, in our fucked up society, you might want a kid to play Call of Duty and say, yo, I should go do this, because then they enlist in the goddamn military or whatever.
And that, I do remember reading somewhere that around Call of Duty's peak popularity, there was a rise in...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And killing is only justified if it's done in the name of your government.
Right, that's what I've been getting wrong
Yeah.
this whole time. I mean, I guess I shouldn't try and get too hung up on the NC-17 rating. Like, the no one under 17 like label for the MPAA was pretty much exclusively for nudity and sex, with things being all, back the other way here in the US. And this, for the most part, went for the AO in games too. To date, there have only been less than 30 video games released with that rating, making up less than a fraction of a percent when compared to the amount of ratings that they have issued overall. I couldn't find the exact amount when researching, but it's probably nearing 100,000 games that they've probably since 1994 have attached ratings to. But of the ones that got the AO, most of them are crude early pornographic computer games going for the rating intentionally for shock, very mid to late 90s. Like they wanted to put that on the box so they could carry it at stores that specialize in selling things for adults, like, you know, like not places like
Yeah.
Funkoland and but and all these games, smaller publishers, low budgets, bad reviews. There was, however, one title given the label due to the premise of it being a online poker game with actual gambling. That makes perfect sense to me. That was that one
that's
kind of stood
fair.
out that I thought was interesting.
Yeah. I don't think this Hatred game, from what I hear, deserved an adults
AO
only
rating.
rating.
Yeah.
You wanna know
However, I do think it's still a dumb fucking game.
truthfully, I think that the adults only rating itself is stupid because again,
That's what I was
mature
saying.
is 17 plus, adults only is 18.
That one
plus.
extra year
Do you remember being 17?
meant so you can see.
Do you remember being 18? Did
Yeah.
anything change?
And-
that was-
and here's the funny thing
I
is,
thought about this
like-
the other day. Okay, right,
Oh, I was
sorry.
gonna say the standards have changed as well. A lot of these, like, some of these porn games are, I'm sure, like earned that rating, but a lot of them, if they were released now, which there's an example that would come up later, probably wouldn't get the AO rating because like nudity wasn't as common in video games in the mid '90s as it is now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, when you look at David Cage
I don't
games
play a
and
video
stuff.
game unless it has tits in it nowadays. So
What about
I thought you were
Dong?
gonna play
What about
Shadow of
Dong?
War.
yeah, there's no tits in Shadow of War.
No.
Guess you're not playing.
Looking
Sorry,
forward
what were
to
you
it.
gonna say?
No, I was just saying, okay, this is weird and a total offshoot, but I've been listening to a lot of true crime podcasts, and specifically, like, ones that were talking about sex crimes. Why isn't 20 becoming an adult? Like, and I
What do
honestly...
you mean? If that, like, I mean, you
like,
mean
if
the
you
difference
take
between
the
that and 21?
Teenager. Yes,
Oh.
but, like, it's like these weird, like...
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not
Like,
sure
I
where
think you're
that
just
standard
as, like,
came from.
when they're talking about these prostitutions of a 17-year-old, I'm like, fuck. But then even when they're like, they're 18, I'm still like, fuck. Like, it doesn't feel any different. It still feels fucked up. It still feels like you're too young to discern certain
not to get
things.
too, you know, kind of explicit with it, but it's like when there was that movement going on of people exposing people for all these horrible things, the tone of the dialogue would change based around whether or not someone was 17 or 18 a lot. It was
Yeah,
like it's
obviously, don't fuck somebody's underage. I'm saying I think underage. should
don't be a rapist
19.
today, but yeah,
Yeah.
it then like
I
once you
know.
add the pedophile angle into
Yeah.
that, like of a 17 or
Yeah, I
16
just say
year
like but it made me think about why isn't the age limit at like 20? Like why isn't teen underage and then 20 is
yeah.
the
I mean, we talked
threshold?
about it before, and
Not
everyone
that there's-
matures at different
Exactly,
ages
not that there's
anyway,
any
so it's all
actual,
irrelevant.
Like, way
but-
you could fucking do it without short of a computer that goes, "Are you mature enough?" And that's a whole other philosophical fucking argument.
yeah.
Dumb. You only get two choices. You get to be an emotional wild species who burns out after a couple hundred years and destroys herself, or you're some sort of weird uniform Sang-Healy species, and then you have no culture or free thinking, and then you move on.
Amen. But
Yeah. Adults only should be a rating that the ESRB has, and it shouldn't be like a mark of death.
yeah,
And it should.
the NC-17 I think is the same way.
yeah. It should be that way,
That's kind of why I was
and it should be
comparing them
it
to-
should be a suggestion.
Yeah, I mean it should always be, but it's
This idea that like when you're 17, if your parents give like you don't need your parents' permission anymore to see violence or sex, but if you're 17 and something is rated for 18-year-olds, then they're not going to sell it.
the funny thing is the only difference between the R rating and the NC-17 is that an R rating you can be under the age of 17 as long as you're accompanied by a guardian, but NC-17 is just no one under the age of 17. But you could still see an NC-17 movie before you could buy an AO rated game, and NC-17 is as high as that scale goes. Like
yeah.
it's interesting, but the question here is: has any video game ever been released getting that rating purely for violence, like before this?
I don't think this is purely for violence.
I don't,
Yeah, I
but
think it's
like,
about
but
the
that,
themes.
but I just meant if you look at the back of the box, that is what is saying it's saying that the game contains, you know. Well, there were actually two to get a little into a couple infamous examples here. One was canceled and one was delayed and edited for resubmission, leaving neither to initially be released in their AO state. And these are just little like kind of tidbits about these because I think these games sort of came up again in the conversation once this happened. And I'd like to maybe explore these topics a little deeper, but this is just going to be a quick overview. The canceled game was Thrill Kill, if anybody remembers.
Yep.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
A 1998 3D 4-player arena fighting game where tasteless characters battled to the death to win the prize of leaving their imprisonment in hell. It was designed by Paradox and set to be published by Virgin Interactive. The game was actually planned to launch on the PS1, except upon Electronic Arts purchasing Virgin, they saw that game on the release schedule and went, nah. So that was a decision from EA. Like, they didn't want their brand to be affiliated. Despite the fact that, like, seeing footage of that game now, it's, like,
Well, yeah.
it's kind of silly. But realistically, Thrill Kill would have probably gotten its M rating under the old publisher just fine, following a couple edits to comply with the Sony guidelines. It's just that EA didn't think it was even worth it. And ROMs of that completed game have leaked online since, and apparently the politically incorrect game wasn't even very good. Nor even edgy or graphic by the standards of
You
today.
mean games based off of some sort of dumb political standpoint
Sure.
are good?
And compared to the standards of today, like with graphic violence, just look at something like the RE2 remake that came out earlier this year. Like, that game's real visceral. Like, there's moments in it that almost like look like the Thing remake. But
Bro, Doom, man.
Doom,
alone.
yeah.
Like, I don't know what you want. Like, that is about as fucking violent as it gets. Because it's sci-fi, it's fucking different.
Yes.
the
You can't see
like
the heaviest
fantasy
fucking
curve.
metaphorical ripping my hair out ever.
But
Like,
here's a little more grounded example, though. The second one,
just say what it is. This game is fucking dumb because it's politically motivated in some dumb fucking way.
Yeah.
It's not AO because it's violent. It's AO because your philosophy is fucking stupid and inarguable.
Yeah.
Violent score, strong language, dumb. That's the descriptors.
But the second example, and I remember this one after foolishly trying to hold on to the idea that the Wii and Nintendo could still like host hardcore games for hardcore adults like me, was none other than Rockstar's Manhunt 2. Do you remember? Do you guys remember this as well? Yeah. Originally scheduled for release in July of 2007 for the Wii, PS2, and PSP, the game was suspended by parent company Take-Two Interactive after getting stamped with the AO Kiss of Death rating, a term used similarly to describe the previously mentioned NC-17, like I said. And if it wasn't properly edited for resubmission, then it technically would have banned the game in the US just like its UK and European counterparts. Again, due to Nintendo and Sony's policies, Rockstar pushed back the planned release date and censored the game, blurring the screen during the game's executions and entirely removing the scoring system where players were awarded for particularly brutal kills. But the edited version, without any problems, was rated M in North America by the ESRB and was eventually released later that year in October. I think there was I remember seeing in the news that there was one of the executions in that game is that you castrated someone with pliers. Pretty sure that one got cut out of the game too.
Yeah, probably.
And this I thought was interesting. It wasn't until Halloween 2 years later, in 2009, that Rockstar would suddenly start taking pre-orders for a PC port of the original unedited, uncut version of Manhunt 2 exclusively through Direct-to-Drive. It was then officially finally released with all your unblurred gore on November 6th, proudly featuring the ESRB's AO rating. However, the title was then later removed from the service after Direct-to-Drive was purchased by Gamefly, due to Gamefly's policy of not carrying AO-rated games. Again, it's another platform that will just never host that stuff.
Also,
Was
Manhunt
another
2 is probably a
platform.
fucking garbage game, too.
Manhunt 2? Yeah, it wasn't great. It was okay. 2 more years later, in November of 2011, the uncut version was available again through Gamersgate, which is an awful name. Not their fault.
I bought something from there once.
Yeah.
I bought Darksiders 1 through Gamersgate.
But it only
That's
available...
fucking amazing.
but it's-
It's like
They're- oh
They,
my
I'm
God.
sure...
You
did
wanna-
they change their name since...
No,
the,
I don't think so. I mean, they might have. But you want to see something like like really feel bad for that company?
Yeah.
Look up their statement they released after Gamergate.
Oh, no.
Because that company's been around far longer than Gamergate
Yeah.
has.
Yeah, of course.
And then they had to release a statement where they're like, "We don't hate women. Like, please
Yeah, I
buy
know.
stuff from us."
It's
Kudos
like-
to them for sticking their ground, though, on their
Yeah.
name. They're like, we came
Yeah,
up with
it's-
it first.
I know, it's
Stop
like some like
co-opting our shit.
some like 1910 like shop in Germany called like Nazis. And it means nothing like that.
Yeah.
And it's like no.
This was only for select regions that this went back up through Gamersgate. Quantic Dream, the company that came up earlier when I was talking about David Cage, would follow a similar path the same year with the uncensored director's cut of Indigo Prophecy, or Fahrenheit for you European listeners out there, on GOG, which was also given adults only by, like, it was also given...
What about that game? Because of the murder shit?
No, so yeah, that game was given an AO rating by the ESRB because of some absolutely heinous consensual sex scenes.
Well, okay.
I think one of which was like interactive in the same way that like a lot like quick timing event.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty tame. I
That
think there's
game
like
wasn't the worst.
there's a boob. No, I like that game, but
Yeah, cool aesthetic.
yeah, but it's just funny that like Fahrenheit, the European version was like, I don't even think that given that high of a rating, but over here it was mostly for the sex, even though there's murder in that game too. Of course, future remasters of that game also in 2015 would just get the boring old M rating, despite being identical to the now less enticing AO version. That's what I was talking about with standards changing. But nudity was much more taboo to show in games back in 2005 than now. Well, you know, in here anyway, in this country.
Yeah.
The Euro release never had a problem with the original content in this case. Also,
They love boobs.
but yeah, those are just the short versions
We
of
do
those.
too. We're just not
Yeah.
allowed to.
Yeah, right.
I've
Let's get this on
considered-
mic.
I've considered diving deeper into both this, maybe a full episode later in the future, though I feel like most of what we say here is pretty much going to ring true in those potential discussions as well. It's all just going to kind of circle back to this. But regardless, back to Hatred, the AO was there to stay. First one ever on the Steam platform, or any major modern platform for that matter. The reason wasn't even really ever made clear, which is kind of why we were, you know, trying to sort of, I guess our best guess, just based off this, it has to just be the premise and nothing else.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Or the tones.
Ideologies.
The ideologies.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this game was rated after the exposure of the political backgrounds of
Yes.
some people, so they could have come into play.
I'm sure it did. If there's
yeah.
any fucking smart person working at the ESRB.
Yeah.
Probably not.
So
But-
it maybe
But yeah, probably not. It's probably for some fucking weird political motivation.
we don't know. Yeah, it could have absolutely just been the politics. Because even something like a Hotline Miami got the M, and that was from a small publisher too. So it's not like that bias was, you know, there for everyone. It's
Hotline
true.
Miami is far worse than Hatred because she got dope electronic music in it.
It's true. It's just and also the team that made Hotline Miami wasn't all affiliated with.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But still, Destructive Creations was in no mood to battle that rating and reacted to the news with mostly confusion at first, I guess. Well, I'm not quite convinced why Hatred got the AO rating. Well, it lacks any sexual content, but it's still some kind of achievement to have the second game in history getting the AO for violence and harsh language only, even if the violence really isn't that bad and the harsh language isn't overused. That's part of the reason why I wanted to tell the stories of those other games, because he references them there. This was the game's director on their official forum. The post continues, I would prefer to get a standard M rating because the AO means that we will have problems to get this on consoles in the future. But on the other hand, I think you guys, our fans, would be disappointed with it. I guess this explains why they even submitted it in the first place, though, considering Steam doesn't really care about ratings. But can't ever bring poor Hatred to the Switch, though.
I think there were physical versions of it.
There were, yeah, which I almost bought one, not through the company, but I kind of wanted to buy one.
You have a problem.
I have a thing for physical I think that's going to be a piece of something, history.
Yeah,
and
it's going to be a piece of something. All right.
I just want it on my shelf to be like, remember this time?
Copy of Mein Kampf is a piece of something, too. You want one of those?
I only looked on eBay for other people that were looking to get rid of it. Not of Mein Kampf, of Hatred.
I know. I thought that's what you were talking
Mein
about.
Kampf, Mein Kampf's been at the library. It's probably cheaper to buy.
What, you would know?
I haven't looked it up.
Lately.
But yeah, they weren't looking to edit, and this only made the Edgelord fans want it more. Them and curious idiots like me. This was all crazy,
Yeah,
and I
Edgelord
don't...
fans covers you. Go on.
Yeah, shut up. I don't know why I cared, but I did. I think I just thought it was interesting. I wanted
Is
to
it
know.
that hatred
I
tattoo
wanted-
you have? I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, it says humans are worms on your arm.
Yeah. I just thought my entire back is that opening quote from the top of the shoulder blade all the way down. But, and I also should have mentioned that the actual reveal of the rating was through the game's second trailer, with press responding to the new footage the way you'd assume they would. Polygon called it just as vicious and cynical as the first trailer, while Guardian and Rock Paper Shotgun and Kotaku described Hatred as a true mass murder simulator. Bringing that phrase back into the ether again. The rest of the criticism continued to be directed at the shock rock nature of it, so, why not both, right? But anyway, fast forward to April, release date gets announced for June 1st, 2015, but then days before launching, something else sort of funny happens. Y'all ever heard of Twitch?
No.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos' video game streaming platform.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. Pretty big deal these days, so I'm told, I guess.
I'm a Mixer fan myself, but go on.
Well, on May 28th, I guess this is like 3 days before the game was set to come out, they dropped some news regarding their now in effect changing guidelines for their service. The new rule being that any game rated adults only by the ESRB is strictly prohibited to stream, and failing to comply to this will quickly result in a permanent ban. Filming in a bathroom is a temporary suspension. That wasn't announced back then. I was just trying to be topical. But yeah, this sure as shit was no fucking coincidence. It was pretty much the first and only AO-rated game even released since the launch of their platform, anyway.
Yeah.
And it also didn't stop there. They further wrote in a statement that a game will also be barred if it, quote, violates our community guidelines. This applies to hate speech, sex, nudity, gratuitous gore, or extreme violence, which most of that is a rather inconsistent considering what is allowed and featured in a typical M-rated game. Because I'm fully behind the hate speech part, but, trust me, but when it comes to Doom and MK11,
People stream that, right?
yeah, absolutely. Those...
Did you see the thing? There was a thing at E3 where Ubisoft was
They
like,
push it,
Ubisoft was like, hey, we're going to let, community artists, make stuff for our games or whatever, and then one of the guidelines was like, don't make anything that promotes any, nefarious behavior such as drugs, alcohol, guns, violence. And somebody's just like...
Oh, it wasn't killing one of them, and that's where
Yeah.
it became what is
just
killing in games?
Well, no, it's just somebody's just that's going to be real difficult in an Ubisoft game to not make anything related to drugs or guns. The last Ghost Recon was about both.
Yeah. And even pushing the violence aside for a second, plenty of games have shown nudity with no backlash at all. Look at Red Dead and Metro, the Metro games.
The GTA 4 Ballad of Gay Tony.
That had a wiener in it.
It had a wiener in it.
GTA 5 had wieners in it as well, I think.
Yep.
But it's just really hard to tell from that, those descriptions is all I mean. It seems like it would be a by-game basis.
Yeah, so they did that because their community guidelines are vague so that they can make calls.
Yes. And speaking of these
and not
calls...
cite anything specific.
and specific instances, they did complete the post with a ban list that is still prominently featured on the site to this day, and supposedly continuously updated too, which I will read only some highlights from, as most are likely hentai visual novel games and stuff like that. But
My favorite.
but I did see that, anybody remember this game? I did see that BMX XXX was on that list.
Yep.
Which is odd because that was an M-rated game. So it should technically be fine, even though it's tasteless.
Mm-hmm.
Not that anyone should stream that game anyway, because it's terrible, but still, I just find it funny that it's too hot for Twitch, but not for the GameCube. Also, ethnic cleansing. Makes sense. Genital jousting.
That's the big one.
Genital jousting is
Yep.
banned, I guess. But come on, the game is mostly silly, but Honeycam Studio, I get that one. Porno Studio Tycoon, I get that one too. I don't know, the Grezzo 1 and 2 were on here, and I'm pretty sure those are just old Doom mods. But scrolling through this list, Rape Lay, which fucking good, Jesus. Lots of secure games. Second Life, which I get that one too, I suppose. And The Guy Game, which I would hope so, considering streaming that one would technically likely be a felony. Yeah.
The what game?
The Guy Game. It was a trivia.
It was a trivia game that had this Girls Gone Wild angle where if you got it right,
You got questions right.
girls would take off their clothes, but then
It was an FMV game on Xbox and PS2.
But somebody discovered that one of the girls in the game was not 18.
Oh my god.
So they had to pull that game the fuck off the shelves.
Oh my god. That's fucking amazing. Fucking idiots.
Yeah.
Why does a game like that even exist?
And the last one on here that I thought was funny, everyone's favorite. What's under your blanket? Can't
That
stream.
game's amazing.
Can't stream
and
that.
so loud.
Yeah. So there it is, though. No streaming for Hatred. It's like the whole world's against it, you know? But this brings us to the release.
Yeah, makes you just
Finally,
wanna write a manifesto. Put on a trench coat.
June 1st. So before I re-explain my tale of acquiring this game to play, Chris, I guess you have not played it, nor have you seen stuff of it. But Austin, I know you have. Mm-hmm. Not that you could have seen this anywhere since you're not even on Twitch, but Austin, what did you think of the only game that you ever borrowed from me on Steam sharing, since you already always buy everything?
I hate you for buying that game because you knew I was curious enough to try it if I got my
Yes.
hands on it. But it was garbage. It controlled like shit.
Yeah, it was very
It was
floaty. and
stupid as hell.
Yeah.
The black and white graphics were bad. That filter was bad.
The grainy,
the animations were bad. The game was like hard, like ridiculously hard, but mostly just because of how bad the controls were.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, and like the executions were like horrifying.
See, so that's what I'm saying. Like, because it's so bad, it's hard to say that it was
Ever
done
to
for
make any
any
kind
other
of statement.
reason
Yeah.
except to be provocative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's crazy violence in Last of Us. It's also one of the best video games
Yes,
ever made.
absolutely.
Okay? There's crazy violence in Grand Theft Auto 5. It is also
Yes.
somehow one of the best and worst video games ever made. But
There's
maybe that's a
tons
bad
of
example.
racism and violence in BioShock Infinite, and it's also
And it's
one
a
of the best
masterpiece.
video games ever made.
It's a
And all
fucking
three of those
masterpiece.
came out in the same year.
Yeah, that's very true.
So with all that said, if you're going to make a game with some sort of provocative statement, it cannot suck that bad.
Yeah.
So you know what's weird about Hatred? The one thing I remember, and I looked this up right before we started because I had to like remind myself, it didn't have a ton of VO or anything.
No, and not
No,
not
and
especially.
of course-
There were cutscenes in between.
There were,
the few
but I
levels.
found an interview with the people that made it, and they said like, "Oh, we intentionally left the protagonist mostly silent because we wanted you to determine what his motivations were." And it's like,
I think the-
motivations for killing innocent people
think
in a
the-
suburban neighborhood?
I never beat it. I think the ending of the game is that you set off a nuke and blow up the whole
Cool.
city. Yeah,
What a fantastic video game!
yeah. And you kill yourself at the end and everybody else, I'm pretty sure.
Cool.
So unpopular opinion, Hatred is a bad game, but I didn't think it was the worst thing ever played. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it controlled great. I didn't think it looked amazing, but for what it
Gave
was,
me motion sickness too.
I had kind of fun running around in the environment. I thought the destructible, I thought the way that the map was set up of where you could go and driving through buildings and just like the way that particles and physics would react to like explosions. I thought it was okay. I've played other things doing it that were infinitely better.
Because you're
but
part of the alt-right and you don't like...
it's not true. I mean, obviously I thought the attitude of the game was fucking trash, but I did sit there for a few hours and just kind of like mind-numbingly just run through this environment. And once the police respond to you, which is pretty much instantly in that game, then it actually becomes a game. Like running around killing innocent people who aren't shooting back doesn't feel great in like emotion, but it's not satisfying either. Like it doesn't make for real game, like mechanically driven
was
gameplay.
also bad.
The AI was bad. Like the way that the police reacted to you was pretty poor. And there wasn't like a huge amount of weapon variety even in it or anything really. But
No, it's bad. It's a bad video game.
yeah. And also, the one thing that I did notice upon boot up is that the game does not feature the Unreal logo in it, despite obviously using Unreal 4. And I found out that is because the screen was removed at the request of Epic Games. Apparently the same thing was done for each of the trailers as well. NVIDIA PhysX, though, they didn't have a problem. No snowflakes over there. That company. But yeah, and I guess for those who haven't heard this before, I was very curious about Hatred. Once I heard about the political connection to the development team, I did not feel comfortable buying it on Steam. So I opted to purchase a code through G2A before I found out that that wasn't totally ethical either.
That site has been in the news recently. Man, fuck those people, by the way.
I know. Trust me, I feel bad about it. It's the only thing I've ever, I bought Rocksmith, I think, on PC the same day. But I haven't used it since this. But I bought it through them for a lower price than I think the $15 or $20, whatever it was when it came out. And played it for a few days, and then Austin played it for like an afternoon, and then it got revoked from my Steam library from Steam, I guess, cracking down on people getting codes in a not legitimate fashion.
This is in the past.
2015, right? When did it come out?
2015, June 1st.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Randy
so
bought it like the day it came out.
I was home. I was bored.
I was a racist.
Felt like
Yeah.
killing a bunch of people.
No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah,
Your mom told you to take the trash out, and you didn't want to, so you wanted to instead put on a trench coat and kill some innocent people. I get it.
but my curiosity aside, yes, the game was not great, nor worth all the hubbub at all. Obviously, me and you were not the only ones to have thought this, because this fucking thing whiffed hard in terms of critic reviews. Currently, the game is sitting at a red-hot 43 out of 100 on Metacritic. GameSpot gave it a 3 out of 10, noting that the novelty of it wore off quickly due to a lack of variation in the structure or levels, while pinpointing, quote, the fact that the final product fails even to be worth a primal psychotic scream of victory against society at large for the people it might encourage means it laughably fails even at being dangerous, which is kind of what Chris, you've been saying this whole time. Yeah, other folks in the industry mostly called it boring. Though Rock, Paper, Scissors would take it further by saying that Hatred fails in every way. It falls short in terms of entertainment, technical competence, and to be a controversial, shocking experience. While Chris Gardner of Destructoid remained critical of the game's several technical issues. I do remember having control problems and frame rate drops. There were some that saw the highlights still. Softpedia even praised the game's core mechanics, calling it a good twin-stick shooter that manages to offer an interesting experience only through the actual theme. I think that's a little too far. The IGN's overseas...
Who said that?
That was a Softpedia, was one of the few less negative reviews to come out.
I'm sorry, who?
I just wanted to get the other opinion. Softpedia. The IGN's overseas, because the IGN here did not review it, praised the visuals and the environmental destructibility, but criticized its repetitiveness, poor AI, and weak plot. That is definitely all accurate, but that didn't matter. The surrounding controversies and rare AO rating reigned supreme, because it did not take long for Hatred to quickly become a bestseller on Steam, and it right now holds a mostly positive response on the site. That's why I always tell people that reviews on that store are fucking useless.
That they're all politically motivated?
Yeah.
And that politically motivated criticism is the worst kind of criticism?
But yeah, it certainly wasn't the best game of its type from my experience, but I actually probably would have scored it, I don't know, maybe just like a 5 out of 10.
2.
Yeah. I mean, I
It
don't know.
functioned.
It functioned.
That's about it.
I don't know. It was bad, but I've played worse.
But what
no
was the first time
crime.
you truly felt like a game was speaking to you?
No, that was Postal. Postal 2. Either way, this thing really felt like it was kind of like a Night Trap situation all over again. Like, I could talk more about the response of this thing, but once it was out, the story was kind of over. The game itself is whatever, and we were all silly on any side for thinking that Hatred was going to mean anything the way the original Mortal Kombat did.
Yeah.
But there it is. It's available on Steam for you to purchase right now if you want it. At the time of this recording, it's $2.99, 50% off for the summer sale, I think.
It's on the summer sale, isn't
Which-
it?
what's the
50%
summer
off
sale
from its now set price tag of $6.
Summer sale will be over by the time this episode comes out.
Oh,
So,
sorry,
you know.
y'all. I guess if you want it, $6.
Please don't buy Hatred. Please.
All of the bullshit aside, I do still believe that there's an interesting, there is a dialogue to have out there regarding the topic of provocative art being created in the world of video games that perhaps pushes the boundaries beyond what a retailer or tech conglomerate may find appropriate. It's just that Hatred isn't it.
Well said.
Yeah. And that's our.
I concur.
That's what I was gonna say. Pretty much, that was gonna be my final thoughts. It's just like, who cares? This game sucks. Find something else to fucking get your controversy over.
Yeah.
They were just trying to find. They were just trying to find an angle.
And since then, we haven't seen a conversation like that. Nobody's tried to make a game like that, nor have an AO rated game come to light. But do you think?
You didn't hear about that new top-down game where you're a white guy fighting off immigrants with a tiki torch? It's like the Simpsons game.
I can't tell if you're making this. I'd like to think that one day, because when I was scrolling through the list on ESRB's website of all the AO rated games, they're all just the bottom of the barrel in terms of quality and message. Like they're just awful. Like they're really crude and shameless. Other than the game,
true art takes nuance.
The most respectable AO rated game is that gambling one.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if that game's any good. But
true art takes nuance, and if it's an art that flies under the lack of nuance, surprise, bitch, that's still fucking creative
well, I guess
nuance.
the directive cut of Indigo Prophecy. But do you think we will see an AO rated game in our time that's actually a well-made, cohesive experience that is well regarded and saying something important?
No, because I think that games don't need to be rated anymore.
Essentially,
really?
I mean, if you want to be on those consoles, you do, and if you want to be on the Walmart shelves, you do. But how much power is that going to hold in a few more years?
I think any game that's willing to take that risk wouldn't be a retail game.
I think you're right.
Considering the fact that every AAA publisher out there is like, whoa, we're not political.
Yeah.
Yeah,
God.
So
it's like every day another company is.
I think if a game ever got to the point where they got an adults-only rating and an indie game and had to go back and edit it, they just wouldn't put it out on consoles.
I think there was a Sims game called Singles, Flirt Up Your Life, that came out around the same time as The Sim, and that was an AO-rated game, but apparently that was, respectable. It was just a Sims game where the sex was a part of it, unedited, but I'm sure if I pulled up footage of that, it would probably... not hold up at all. It'd probably be pretty dumb and gross. But
I got a good way to end this episode.
Okay, yeah.
There's the top liked review on Steam. So let's do the plugs first, and then I'm gonna read that.
Yeah, that's a good way to play everybody out.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you for sticking with me on that one. I'm sorry I was stumbling over my words a lot. At one point we took a break, and I was talking to Austin that it wasn't just the Polish words fucking me up. I was stumbling a lot of my sentences because a lot of the stuff is translated from Polish to English. Our language is not structured the same way.
Yeah.
So it is very hard to read that and with your eyes and then your mouth and be like, that's not how people speak. But I think I got through it.
Whoa.
No,
not how Polish
I'm
people
sorry.
speak.
No, that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Jesus, we
God
got the next
damn it.
Hitler over here. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, all that crap. We also have a website, hotbuttoncast.com.
Are we on Avalanche? What's it called? Is that what it's called?
Himalaya.
What the hell's
Himalaya.
Avalanche? Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know what Himalaya is. Either.
It's another podcast service.
Welcome Himalaya fans and listeners.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
You can
support.
follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at HotButtonCast. See all my awesome photoshops that I spend a lot of time on that I'm sure half of you haven't seen.
I can't wait to see the one for this.
Oh, God, this is going to be a rough
You're
one.
going to have so much fun.
This is going to be rough.
We have field day. If you want to hear more topics centered around game violence and murder, we got a lot of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, we often, I don't know, I feel like
ratings?
This is a tough topic to have an
It
actual
is.
discussion
I know.
about.
I feel usually we're going a mile a minute with our thoughts, but we're trying to choose our words carefully.
Yeah.
Because it's a complicated issue.
Stay tuned for more episodes. I don't know if there's any plugs I left out.
Now, Austin, why don't you play us out with the thoughts of... I bet he has a great username, too.
End Times Observer
Yeah.
is the username.
That's good.
This game deserves awards for doing a positive service to society. It's a therapeutic stress relief for the average working Joe who has to negotiate his tired ass through an increasingly fragmented and hostile world. Have a crap day at work, dealing with low IQ, Coworkers, get cut off in traffic by the punk in the sports car.
Oh my god.
Did your neighbor's cat leave another dead bird on your lawn?
I think just see
Are you
falling
burned
down
out
yesterday.
by Hollywood, the news, your government, and college students with majors in interpretive dance telling you how bad you are? Did you get a ticket going 5 miles over the speed limit when you know the same cop someday will let off honey if she flashes him her gazongas?
Oh no.
Well, no worries.
Gazongas.
Hatred is here for you. Just fire it up with a beer beside you and blow off some steam. This game is the best, cheapest therapy there is.
I take back everything I said. Fuck this game. You know when your girlfriend goes yak yak yak, like it's like this guy is an idiot.
And then the one under that is bum ass N-word is his name,
Oh.
and it says positive. You play as a guy with a gun.
There you have it, folks. The nuance of Steam reviews. Good night.